Great, so welcome to those of you who are joining the webinar. We'll give you a few moments to join the forum. If you're joining, then please do take a moment to open the chat box and just let me know where you're joining from. We'd love to know where you're logging on from and where in the world. I know there's going to be a very multicultural bunch of guests today, and it's such a pleasure to have so many of you from all over the world, so thank you for joining. Nikki from Leeds. Hi everyone, Cora from Singapore. Hi Jennifer from New York, great to have you, great to see you on here. Nick from Dubai, hi Nick. Thanks for helping us to put this together. Annabelle from London, got Will from Sydney, excellent. It's getting late in the evening in Sydney, so thanks for joining us. Jenny from Dubai, excellent. If you're logging on, welcome. Thank you so much for joining the webinar. We're very proud to bring you today's insights in partnership with Dubai Active Industry and Welltodo. So hopefully you will be able to see myself right now and the presentation, and you can adjust your viewing options from either presentation mode or gallery mode. So we will have some guests joining us on the webinar today who are introduced shortly. In the meantime, if you're joining, please do let us know in the chat where you're joining from. Thank you so much. We've got a few people coming in from London. Dawn's joining us from London. Hi Dawn. Rose from London. Sarah from Dubai. Helen from Bahrain. Fantastic. Great. Well, hopefully you're going to be an interactive bunch today. We've gotten off to a great start. Today is hopefully going to be a really interactive session. We've got an hour and I'm going to jump straight in so that we can make the most of our time together. So again, welcome to today's webinar. You'll see on the screen from the presentation that today is brought to you by Dubai Active Industry and Welltodo. And I'm going to share a little bit more about our respective missions in just a moment. If you're watching on the replay, thanks so much for joining us. To introduce myself, my name's Lauren. I'm the founder of Welltodo. And I have the pleasure of spending the next hour with you as we dive into the future of the fitness industry. So in light of the current challenges that we're facing as an industry, we are especially honoured to see so many of you joining today. We're expecting hundreds of people to join the webinar, so you're in good company and we look forward to some interaction from you all as we go through. It's been really powerful, I'm sure you'll all agree, to see the industry really banding together in support of one another, particularly in the fitness sector. At Welltodo, we look at the whole wellness industry, and fitness is a huge leading part of that industry category. And so we're looking forward to hearing some of your questions as we go through. Please, if you're still joining, let us know where you're joining from in the chat. For those of you discovering either Welltodo or Dubai Active Industry for the first time today, a few short words about our respective missions. So when Craig and Rachel and the team at Dubai Active approached us at Welltodo about partnering to bring you the insights today, we jumped at the opportunity naturally. Dubai Active Industry is a dedicated platform for the global fitness and wellness trade to build connections with industry leaders, government officials, and influential buyers in the Middle East in particular. Dubai Active, many of you will know, is the Middle East's leading international fitness and wellness event, and it attracts pioneering brands from around the globe to Dubai each year, along with influential buyers, distributors, and retailers for the wellness market. And as many of you will know as well, it's taking place again this year from the 12th to the 14th of November at Dubai World Trade Center. And hopefully many of you will be attending that. We certainly will be. The team at Welltodo will be there. And we're really looking forward to engaging in the market there at a time where fitness and wellness is certainly a priority in the Middle East. And for those of you in that market, I'm sure you will know that. The team at Dubai Active are currently offering additional support for brands looking to expand into the Middle Eastern market. So if you're joining us today and you'd like to have a chat with their team and explore opportunities in the Middle East, then please do go ahead and get in touch with the team at Dubai Active after the webinar today. Thanks for sharing where you're joining us from. We've got people joining from Dubai, the Netherlands, from all over the world. So it's a pleasure to have you all here. So similarly to the Dubai Active team at Welltodo, we really share a very similar ethos. We've got a mission to empower the global wellness industry and support people like you joining us on the webinar today to build incredible businesses and careers in the wellness industry. So we do this through our digital news and insights platform, which you can subscribe to and read regularly over at welltodoglobal.com. We publish regular downloadable reports where we spotlight trends, insights into the future of the industry, including consumer behavior and industry trends, and our industry events, which are obviously now taking place digitally, are happening frequently. And our annual Welltodo Summit takes place each year in London, and much more. We also deliver recruitment services to help fitness and wellness brands hire top talent as the industry expands. And so similarly, if we can support you with any of these services or in navigating the trends that we're exploring in today's webinar, then please do reach out to myself or the team at Welltodo. So without further delay, let's jump into the content. Today, I am pleased to welcome our two guest speakers, Max Henderson, who is the co-founder of Hopwood Yoga, and Glenn Stollery, CEO of Les Mills International, including Russia, Africa, the Middle East, and India. So I'm just going to invite Glenn and Max to join the webinar. We've done a few of these digital events now, so I'm starting to master the art of navigating Zoom. So Glenn and Max, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Laura.
Pleasure.
So both of you know firsthand how challenging the events of recent months have been for the fitness industry as a whole. In fact, anyone joining us on the webinar today will know that there have been many changes, calls to pivot and to really think about what the future of the industry holds. And so it's a real pleasure to have both of you here to share your perspectives. So I'm sure our guest speakers will agree that the whole fitness industry has really had to step up, and that call has been in order to take products and services online as part of a very dramatic pivot for the industry. There's been a focus on the well-being of our employees, whether they are employed full-time, contracted or freelance staff. We've been called to emphasize greater customer communication, engagement, connection, and also plan for the challenges that lie ahead and the lasting effects of COVID-19. So before I get your perspectives, Glenn and Max, we just want to share some of the industry stats that are helping to paint a bit of a picture of our new reality. So hopefully if you're joining the webinar, you can see the presentation, and we'll just flick to the next slide. Hopefully that will work. Great. So some of these statistics. Mirror, a US-based interactive at-home fitness system that sells for $1,500, has seen its sales more than double over the period of COVID. MindBody, a leading software provider, has seen more than 7,000 studios adopt its virtual offering service, and up to 200,000 virtual classes are being taken each day around the world using MindBody software. More than 500 studios have added live bookable classes to the ClassPass platform. Aptiv says traffic to their fitness app since the coronavirus outbreak is up 100%, and engagement with content is up 200%. And then, of course, sales of smart bikes like Peloton, Echelon, etc. have, as expected, also peaked. Bricks and mortar fitness providers, like many of you joining the webinar today, have had to adapt quickly, and we've seen a shift to complementary digital workouts through social media, and also a rapid development of digital platforms on which to build, execute, and monetize this content. We've seen boutique fitness studios all around the world, a few here examples shown, who have turned around fully digitalized on-demand platforms in as little as 8 days. And the competition in this market is certainly heating up, and I'm sure that we'll explore that in a moment. An interesting piece of research we're sharing on the screen. Consumers are anxious, and they're obviously understandably overwhelmed. They're being mentally stretched by challenges from, working from home, looking after or homeschooling children, and so on. According to research from Edelman shown on the presentation, 1 in 3 consumers are already punishing brands that haven't responded to the crisis well, not only by stopping using them directly, but by convincing others to stop using them too. So it's an added layer of pressure when you're trying to keep your business alive and retain customer loyalty. And it's important to get it right all the time, according to consumers. In our last Trends Forum, we highlighted the importance of focusing on loyalty, which right now means that many of you are prioritizing your purpose, your core values over perhaps points or promotion. And it's about weaving that brand experience into a new sense of self that customers are adopting. We know that there is a new, far more savvy and competent digital consumer that we need to reach, and digital propositions are no longer viewed as optional, but rather as an integral part of a brand's offering. And we'll explore this blended approach of the future in a moment with Glenn and Max. And finally, as the world continues to navigate this global crisis, we're seeing an acceleration of the collective improvement trend, which means individuals are using this time, and I'm sure many of you are as well, to really reassess what matters most to you in your lives and where brands like yours fit into that transformational experience. So we are going to be taking some questions throughout the session today. So you'll see many of you, I'm sure, are very experienced now with using Zoom, but at the bottom of your menu, you'll see a Q&A function, which will allow you to submit questions as we go through. Just a note on that, if you prefer to ask your question anonymously, feel free. We're happy to take your name and your company if you'd like to mention that. But if you prefer to ask a question anonymously, there's an option for you to do that as well. Please start firing your questions as we go through, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions coming through, and we would love to be able to cover off as many of those as possible. So without further ado, I think it makes most sense, Glenn, if we start with you, to just share a little bit about yourself, your remit with Les Mills, and also, of course, a little bit about how the pandemic has impacted the Les Mills business.
Yeah, of course. So I manage effectively our emerging markets for Les Mills. So hopefully most of you on the webinar are familiar with us, but if you're not, we're the world's leading provider of group fitness solutions all over the world in over 100 countries. And basically we offer solutions to help engage members and keep them attending your facilities more often, and through training and group exercise. So yeah, it's, as you've already alluded to, I guess the biggest change that we've seen is that digital fitness has absolutely been accelerated. We do a global fitness survey every year, and last year we really saw that 85% of those attending a club were already training at home, and over 90% of those were using apps or online platforms. So we knew this was an established behavior before COVID. And obviously COVID has come, and for want of a better term, has absolutely put that trend on steroids. We were lucky in that we had a platform already called Les Mills On Demand, which was a consumer platform where members were able to do workouts at home with 800 of our classes. So we were able to deploy that to all of our club partners all over the world very, very quickly to offer their members free of charge. And so that was something that we were able to get out there, and clubs were able to engage their members, get them training at home, maintain that relationship and keep them exercising. And then we also deployed a live streaming solution as well, so that clubs could stream workouts using their own trainers to their members. So yeah, they could do that straight out of the gate effectively on day one. And as you said, Lauren, we've seen lots of clubs pivot their solution. The boutiques have scrambled really quickly to offer something in that space. And without question, it's taken something that was a nice to have and made it a mandatory expectation.
Thanks so much, Glenn. We'll come back and kind of dive into some of those comments in just a moment. Max, if you could do the same, just share a little bit about Hot Pod Yoga, what your focus is on in the industry, and just how more generally the pandemic has affected your business.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm CEO and co-founder of Hot Pod Yoga, and I would imagine compared to Les Mills, probably less of you know us, sadly, at the moment, but we're working on it. We're a younger business. We launched in 2013. based in London. We've got something like 82 sites predominantly around the UK, also in Europe. So we're a studio business. We're a bricks and mortar business. And I think the thing that defines us, for those that don't know us, we've kind of reinvented yoga and sort of very much brought it into the modern day. And we've done that by really creating, rather than just yoga classes, yoga experiences through particularly our signature spaces, which are our pods, and they're 20 to 25 person, very beautiful, immersive spaces that create this very multi-sensory environment. As I said, that sort of elevates it beyond just a yoga class into a kind of another territory. In terms of the impact on us, I mean, it's been like any other studio business, it's been massive for sure. You know, we closed our doors globally on the 15th of March, I think, 16th of March, maybe. And unlike Glenn, we didn't have a significant online offering prepared. We were working on it like everyone else. We took actually the last sort of 5 days before proper lockdown, and we basically fast-tracked things as quickly as we could. So we launched a business, that's a part of our business called Hot Pod Home, which is an on-demand service to consume online content on our website. And we created as much content as we possibly could in the 5 days pre-lockdown, got them up, and haven't been able to create anything else since. But we have been streaming live content, both us in London, sort of our HQ, but also we helped all of our franchisees move to online streamed classes, live streamed classes, within 2 days of lockdown hitting. So yeah, I mean, it's been an extraordinary experience for sure. I think someone described to me the other day, which I thought was, you know, really astute, which was just saying that everyone has known for a long time that the fitness industry was moving towards digital, and it would certainly be a big part of the mix. And it's not just the fitness industry, it's all sorts of industries. And there are all these changes that were kind of inevitable anyway, and were kind of happening. But what's happened is we've just done a global pilot project that no one was prepared for, and everyone is forced to enter, basically. So it's been really fascinating from that perspective, and certainly we're learning from it, and I'm sure everyone else is.
Max, continuing on from that, you talk about, you know, entering into this digital space, and I know we've had previous conversations about what that now looks like in terms of a boutique fitness studio who, you know, in normal circumstances, what is normal right now, that's up for debate as well, would be focusing on local community, would be local, you know, really geographically localized in its approach. And you're now looking at an opportunity and a challenge at the same time to really enter and penetrate this digital marketplace, this new digital strategy, I suppose. Can you talk about sort of some of the challenges in navigating that, and what it means for the boutique fitness industry?
Sure. I mean, yeah, as I said, it's fascinating because obviously one of the things that defines one of the radical, really, really simple and fundamental differences is that with a bricks and mortar business, with a studio business, a boutique, whatever sort of studio business it is, you rely on geographic proximity to a degree. You have your territory, and that's where you draw your customers from. And the bizarre thing about online is there are no territories, there are no boundaries. And so your audience in theory grows exponentially, goes infinitely almost. But equally, it changes your dynamic and changes your relationship. And so I think a lot of people in our space, in the boutique space, are wrestling with this at the moment, in that to start with, it was very simple, which is your pivot online is to look after your community, which you've created and which is geographically bound to you. It is something, you know, all of our individual communities based around the UK and around the world are linked to the physical studios. And then your starting point inevitably is just to serve those. And it's really, to start off with, as a stopgap. You're saying, I need to look after these people continue to provide the service they know and love and rely on, so that when we pop out the other side and everything's back to normal again, they come back to the studio and that they haven't been let down by us in that interim. And what I think people are now coming to terms with, as you say, is the fact that there is actually an opportunity beyond that, because you can actually move yourself beyond those geographic boundaries that have previously bound you and limited you in a way. How you do that is a whole nother question, though. And it's an interesting, you know, it's the biggest question, I think, for every sort of fitness operator at the moment, is how you properly differentiate yourself. Because in reality, one of the things that differentiates you when you're a studio-based business is your geographic proximity. And so you are able, a lot of the reasons that someone will go to your studio is because it's near you. And actually, if that's completely taken out of the equation, that's no longer a strength for you whatsoever. So you need to lean in all the other directions. And again, you've had other things that are taken away from you. For us, the studio environment has been taken away. And for lots of boutiques, that's a really big and important part of their brand is, the beautiful surroundings, the facilities. And ultimately, what online classes do of any sort is they really pull out a level playing field, because everyone is not in control of how people are consuming it, basically. You're in control of the content you're producing it, but you're not in control of the whole customer experience. So you really need to find a way of differentiating yourself and really providing something that is, elevated above others, which is less easy to do.
Glenn, I suppose you've mentioned with Les Mills On Demand, you've had a little bit of prior experience to a lot of the studio owners or physical bricks and mortar business owners that are joining the webinar. Can you give us some insights into what the key things are to consider when pivoting online into that digital space, and what the keys are to differentiating yourself and creating a unique branded experience for customers?
Yeah, I mean, like anything, I think that the key facet is it has to be a great experience. And one of the specialties that we have is creating content. So if you go onto Les Mills On Demand and look at one of our workouts, there's 8 trainers on a stage with a massive 180-degree video wall behind them with a packed 300 people in the room, and obviously we'd created all that content in advance of this, so it was very easy to get out there. And as a result, our signups on LMOD have gone up 806% since the pandemic started. So that's easy to do when you've preloaded the content and you've got it to deploy. Right now, when people are trapped at home, that's obviously very, very difficult to do. And I think, to Max's point, that's one of the challenges that you have when your team are at home. And when you look at some of the content that the boutiques are creating at the moment, arguably it's not really boutique content. Someone's in their living room with the cat in the room, and they're delivering a class. But so it is a great equalizer. And I think when we do go back to normal, when we're able to do in-club workouts again, leveraging your facility, leveraging the environment, and leveraging that experience, and having that delivered online is going to be something that's really, really important.
And so on that note, once studios and physical facilities do start to open again, can you talk about some of what you perceive to be consumer attitudes around that, some of the pressures from both the consumer side, how will it look for them to feel safe, feel secure in that notion, and also from the business operator side?
Yeah, I think one of the fortunate things about us being a global company is that we've got a team on the ground in China. So we've been able to take some of the learnings that they've had, because they obviously went through this a couple of months before the rest of us, and they're out of it now. I guess we've prepared a preparation for reopening handbook, which we've sent to all our partners. And for anyone that'd like to see that on the webinar today, I'm happy to provide it to you. And it just includes guidance around best practice for hygiene, physical distancing, studio layout, even communication. So all of the learnings that we've got from the Chinese team that obviously came out of this earlier. We've also seen some really innovative ideas coming from some of the operators in Asia. So Pure Fitness is an example, and some may have seen this in one of the recent fitness magazines, digital magazines. They put perspex in between all their cardio equipment, which allows them to maximize the utilization of their space without allowing for the 2-meter physical distancing. That is kind of the guidance that we've all been given. So I think that was really smart as well. I think the other thing to realize when your members come back is that there are some in-club digital solutions that you can utilize to maximize your space. So things like virtual classes, where you are able to run a class in a studio when there isn't a live class on. And that enables you to use that space every hour that you're open, as opposed to just when you've got a live class on. And it's also a really nice way to introduce people back into group training, because they may be wary of the first couple of weeks of going into a packed environment, studio environment, and you can kind of lead them into maybe being one of a handful of people in the room, but still get that group dynamic and that in-club workout.
Was there anything else, Glenn? Or?
Well, yeah, I think when we look to the future, I think we're all cognizant of the fact that everyone has been training at home, and that is a habit that's not going to go away. And we know that in-club workouts are here to stay, and we know that people are going to want to come back to the club, and we've seen that in China. The largest club chain in China, Wills, who's our #1 partner there, they, within week 3 and 4, were back up at 85% capacity, but their new membership sales were over 100% of what they were year on year. So people are really hungry to get back into the club, albeit they may wait a couple of weeks just to kind of see how it plays out. But savvy operators, and I think Max, you alluded to this before, have realized that they can't limit their offering to the 4 walls of their club. And what most facilities were forced to do when this happened is obviously they paused their memberships. And heaven help us if this happens again. We don't really want to do that by offering a kind of a full 360 blended solution that includes online workouts as well. You're able to kind of mitigate people pausing their in-club membership because you're continuing to offer a solution for them at home. So online streaming apps are definitely here to stay, and you want to make them part of your proposition and part of the service that you provide. So I guess the club of the future would have live in-club classes, but would also be streaming those classes to the world and monetizing those workouts. And Max, as you said, that doesn't limit you to your geographic location or the 4 walls of your club. It limits you to the entire world. And if you've got a rock star trainer, or if you're on the call today and you are a rock star trainer, that's really, really exciting because your revenue is no longer limited to those people who live or work near the facility. It's anyone who has an internet connection. And the same can be said for small group training or consulting or even personal training. There's actually no limit to what can be achieved.
And I think that's the opportunity side of all of this. We are still going through the challenging times, but one thing that we really wanted to emphasize on the webinar today is the opportunistic side of this, the reality that you've described in China, which is an exciting prospect, that people are coming back into the gym, are signing back up for memberships, or perhaps re-emphasizing their own well-being in a scenario where we've been reminded of just how important our health is. Max, I'd love to get your views as a sort of continuation of those points, or some of your perspectives in light of what Glenn's shared. And I think I'll just highlight one of the questions that's come through as well, which is from Jennifer in New York, who is an existing member of Equinox. And she says, that she's adopted a Peloton bike at home. She says she's been sent out some of the protocols from Equinox about what will happen when they reopen. And I'm sure, Max, you're already thinking about that for reopening of your pods and studios. But she does highlight that it will really change the experience. And I know when I've read about, spin studios that will reopen and half the bikes will be empty and the instructor's going to have a mask on, it doesn't really have the same feel to it that we are longing for, or that we've missed out on during lockdown. So I'd love to hear your perspective on what you anticipate the shift being in numbers, and also, just how you're preparing to cater to that customer and make it the best experience possible for your existing customers.
Yeah, sure. So, it's really interesting. I think the truth is, everything is speculation at the moment, everything, when it comes to particularly consumer demand. And I think, the one thing that we are beginning to understand and have a degree of certainty on, although it's not necessarily completely clarified, is to what recommendations will be in place. And brands are, like Glenn's saying, putting packs together, saying this is what we're going to do, and that's going to, it's quite likely to change a little bit over time, and we'll get more evidence. There are, it's constantly evolving, and that's proving to be a challenge for people. I think generally the sensible thing, and I would think the responsible thing that most brands would be looking at is saying, to start with, particularly, you really need to err on the side of caution. You need to adhere clearly to all frameworks and guidelines in place, but but you also have a real duty and responsibility to your instructors and to your members. And they will be taking it really, really seriously. And at the moment, you know, you always have this hierarchy of needs in any sort of consumer's decision making. And at the moment, hygiene, where it might have been, you know, slightly down the pyramid, you know, it was always in the pyramid, but not necessarily right at the top. It's now the priority. And so I read a really interesting interview the other day with someone who runs a fine dining group, a group of restaurants who are very high end of fine dining. And they were saying how, this guy was saying how they were planning to really limit the service provision. And so rather than having 6 waiters looking after each customer, each diner, they would have one waiter, and that person would keep their distance, and they might use an iPad to make some of their orders, and they may have a sort of visor. And initially your instinct is, that's not what I want when I want to go for a fine dining experience. But actually what you realize, and this is what they got from surveying their customers, was saying at the moment, that is more important than being able to see someone's face or having the sense of true luxury kind of thing, because that is just, that's the pinnacle at the moment. It won't necessarily always stay in that order. And I think that's one of the really interesting things will be seeing how things develop, seeing how, particularly how people become segmented. People will have different experience of this. They will have different levels of risk aversion, different levels of expectation. And so you're quite likely to have a slightly divided community who might have some people who are happy to bowl into a class with plenty of people, whereas there are other people who are really, really risk averse and want to keep at arm's length. So I think that diversification, slightly as to what Glenn says, is going to be an important part of that. It's catering to various different audiences and different scenarios, because you also face a scenario that's quite likely there will be second waves, there will be re-emergences of lockdowns, all that kind of thing. And so as a business, I think you need to prepare yourself. At the first place, you need to prepare yourself to be at the highest levels of hygiene and responsibility. And then you also need to prepare yourself to be adaptable and prepare yourself to listen to your customers and see what it is they want. And so that's certainly some of the things that we're doing, is that clearly we're taking the hygiene side really, really seriously, and we'll get that right, full stop. But beyond that, we also are looking to diversify our options and diversify what it is we do and what we can offer our customers, so that if people have different, degrees of sort of anxiety or different degrees of risk, as I said, risk aversion, then they can choose different options. And I think that's going to be an important thing, because then we can learn by doing. But I do think at the moment, the truth is it's just wildly speculative, most of it. And so we've all read surveys that say, I think YouGov in the UK did one that said something like only 30% of people would be willing to comfortably return to a gym, or something like 25% comfortable returning to a pub. And I get that, obviously, but we have been in an environment globally where governments and media, quite rightly, have been creating an atmosphere of fear so that people do adhere to lockdowns and stay at home, etc. But that won't always be the case. And I think when people begin to lift, and when lockdowns begin to lift, when consumer habits begin to kick back in and can also be shared with others, then I think we will see a development and change in consumer habits. And so it will just be really interesting to see how it pans out. But I think it's far from certain, for sure.
In terms of your communication strategy, and I'll pass this first to you, Glenn, in terms of communication strategy and actually reaching out to consumers to reassure them around some of these points, what's been your approach? Is it, when is too soon to start talking about going back into bricks and mortar? Have you already done that? And is there any sort of variance in different markets that you're speaking to?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, as Max said, it is market dependent. I mean, I look at one of the reasons why I guess China is now back. We ran an event there 2 weeks ago, and there was 400 people in attendance. There was no social distancing. There was no masks. Everyone was hugging and high-fiving. And I was watching it just going, that seems so alien to, to the environment that we're in right now. But, New Zealand, where I'm from, hence why I have this strange accent, they've had many days where there's been 0 cases and clubs are operating and group exercise is back and running, and it's gone back to business as usual. So definitely it's market dependent. One of the reasons why I alluded to communication being key is exactly for that reason. You want to communicate to your members all the measures that you're taking to mitigate risk and I guess maximize hygiene. And you want to really broadcast that, because perception is reality, and you want to make sure that you are you will have the hardcore that are there on day one, knocking on the door, ready to come back in. But everyone else is going to take a few weeks before they're comfortable. And to your point, Max, some people may not be comfortable at all. And you have to make sure you're communicating it and offering something that kind of appeases everyone, which is difficult.
In terms of kind of opportunities, and again, sort of looking to the future, we have touched on this already, but Max, are there any further thoughts that you have on this sort of new blended approach to online, offline? And to answer one of the questions that's come in too, how do you think boutique digital fitness classes should differ on digital platforms? Have you got any thoughts on, particularly for you where the pod is that sensory experience and so important to the physical experience, how you'll differentiate in your digital platform?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, I think it's definitely a really interesting one. And I think that it's something that slightly this process, this window that we've gone through now, I think has lulled a lot of boutiques into a bit of a false sense of security where they say, this is great. Loads of people are donating or paying for classes and we've got pretty good customer numbers. And that's basically because, as I said earlier, what you're doing is you're providing a stopgap to your customers who were there before, and they're basically waiting till you reopen. And that's a very, very different proposition for something that is a long-term and sustainable solution. And so I think what is a clear and fairly straightforward opportunity, I think, for boutiques is to be able to continue, as Glenn said, to stream or provide digital content in some format as a complement to your bricks and mortar sort of in-studio offering. And the great thing about that clearly is convenience above all else, and price possibly. And there are all sorts of other examples, as other things as well. But convenience, as we know, for bricks and mortar businesses has been such a block for so many people, and that alleviating that and complementing it with your studio offering, I think is just a good and really helpful thing. And it doesn't require massive innovation necessarily. Now, that is again a very different proposition from a standalone digital offering, which is able to attract new customers, retain customers, have digital only customers, for instance. And this is where I think, I don't want to be too doomsday about it, but I think it's really, really hard to imagine, properly how many boutiques and studio operators have a piece of this market in the long term. Because in reality, as Glenn says, with what they've done, if you've got some people who've really invested really heavily in creating really impressive content that, that has a real USP and a real point of difference. And that's not easy to do. And one of the things that if you look in other industries, and other sectors, that one of the perils of the online world of online businesses is that it does tend to breed monopolies or oligopolies, basically, where you don't have hundreds and hundreds or thousands and thousands of diversified offerings. You have a few who are absolutely at the top of their game, providing brilliant content. And some of that is just simple maths, which is basically to create beautiful, really impressive, really, really strong, high quality content is pretty expensive. People basically, because of Netflix and all of the other wonderful online streaming services, have got used to paying not very much for online content. Therefore, if you do the maths, you very simply need to have millions or billions of users until it really adds up in a meaningful way. And that is the antithesis, basically, of a boutique model. And so I think that is going to be, that's going to be a real challenge for a lot of businesses if they think they are able to play in that space, is how do you differentiate it and how do you actually create a business model that stacks up and makes sense?
That makes sense. Would there be anything that you'd add to that, Glenn?
I mean, I think this is something that we're all learning literally on the fly here. But one of the things that I think you're right, Max, it is a numbers game. And if you look at Peloton or Les Mills On Demand, where effectively you're broadcasting, it is a numbers game because the yield per subscriber is very low, but you've got thousands or hundreds of thousands, or in some cases millions of subscribers. But I think where the club model can be a real differentiator, and this is one of the things that we're learning at the moment with our streaming, is to offer more of a boutique environment where there is two-way communication and where you're not just broadcasting, because that's what most clubs are doing right now. They're jumping on Facebook Live or Instagram and broadcasting to hundreds or thousands of people, but it's one way. So if you have like a two-way platform like Zoom or something similar, where you're able to engage and you have that that interaction, and the trainer can stop and check your technique and connect with you. That's something that I think that can be a differentiator, and people would pay more for, because you're right, when everyone right now is just broadcasting on the internet, it is effectively, they're very, very similar offerings, and it isn't sustainable long term. I'd agree with you, but there is an option. There is definitely an option for boutiques or clubs to offer a more personalised, more unique two-way interaction, and I think that's potentially where we can offer a game changer moving forward when we do get back to live classes again.
That's really interesting. And we've got lots of questions coming in, and please keep them coming, guys. There's a question here around music licensing, which would be great to get your perspective on. From your perspective, Glenn, I'm sure you've already thought about this and already have models in place. Max, I know you have your own unique approach, which would be really interesting for our audience to share. Glenn, can we start with you? And how do you see, for new businesses who are going into this sort of streaming and on-demand space, how do they tackle the issues around music?
How long have we got? So it is a minefield. It's really, really complicated, and it's something that we've been putting a lot of time and effort into kind of finding a solution for at the moment. At the moment, we've offered a number of about 30 or 40 classes that clubs can stream on any platform, and they're license free. And the reason that we can do that is because it's music that we've created. We're actually Les Mills is the largest employer of musicians in New Zealand. So we kind of create our own music, and we've been able to get that out quite quickly so that clubs can offer streaming outside of the Les Mills On Demand platform. But we are working on a secondary option now, which I probably can't speak about right now, but may be able to speak about next week, where we'll be able to open this off and offer a far more comprehensive library for clubs to be able to stream any of our music. It's not quite signed off yet. It's with the Music Licensing Board in New Zealand right now. So, but it is a minefield, and it's something you do have to be really wary of if you're doing freestyle or creating your own music, because a number of the platforms like Facebook or YouTube will literally shut the broadcast down, will close the music off if it is licensed music. So definitely something to be wary of.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know I've joined a couple of digital classes via Zoom where the instructor has sent out a link to a Spotify playlist beforehand and said, play your own music to go along with the class. And whether that's allowed, I don't know. As you say, it's a minefield. Max, I know that Hot Pod Yoga has its own approach to music licensing. Can you share some of that with us?
Yeah, so ours dates back to old bricks and mortar licensing, of saying, a music licensing basically being very expensive, particularly for small operators. And most of our franchisees, because I don't think I said earlier, we're a mix of own studio and franchise business. So we have lots of franchisees that we work very closely with and support and provide all sort of infrastructure with, and work, as I said, very closely with. And essentially, paying music licensing for them was always quite painful and pretty expensive. And so what we did is we actually put together an app which we created for us and our franchisees that's used across all of our studios, and is now also used for our online classes. And it hosts a unique playlist to ours, and a bit like Glenn, we work directly with the artists, and so we've bought off license essentially lots of music that is absolutely perfect for our classes, and it's sort of our signature music, and we paid the artist directly for that music to ensure that they're getting the right rewards, and then we have exclusive rights to that, which means that we don't have to pay music licensing. And that was necessary for us and has been a big win. But it's also, it's a way of being able to constantly ensure that you've got great quality music that you have a degree of control over, which has been great. But it is one of those things that's very, very time consuming to do. I mean, we've got a team of people who do it, and that's fine and helps us a lot. But if you're an individual operator, it's not that easy. So it's a difficult space for sure.
Yes, and one, as you've said, that will inevitably play out in time, and one that we're all sort of navigating together as an industry. But Glenn, look forward to hearing some more of that news, and perhaps you can read about that next week on Welltodo. I'm going to jump into some of the questions coming in from our audience. I think probably this one is more for you, Glenn, because it relates to Les Mills On Demand. So Anonymous attendee says, hi, I've observed that high numbers of our members had chosen Les Mills on demand, and well done to Les Mills for being there with the platform available. Of course, the quality of the master trainers is notably higher than our local trainers, and not being geographically bound to us, I'm wondering, how will we bring our members back, since Les Mills is reaching out to our end consumer and not only to instructors anymore?
If I had $1 for every time I'd been asked that question, it's something that comes up a lot, and I think something that I have to kind of make really clear right out of the gate is that our core business is supporting clubs, and we would never do anything to jeopardize that. We've got, as I said, the number of subscribers on Les Mills On Demand has increased hundreds and hundreds of percent since it started, and we do the database that the clubs, for any consumers you have referred to, LMOD is yours, so we don't engage with them other than to tell them that there's new content that's available. But we know from the surveys that we do that 98% of LMOD subscribers plan to keep their in-club membership as well. And one of the things that we do is make sure we intentionally phase the music and the releases on LMOD 6 months behind the experience that they have in your club. So we take a lot of measures to protect the in-club environment to make sure that members come back. And I guess what we wanted to make sure that happened was that your members could continue to do the workouts that they love at your club while your club was closed. And that was the number one reason why we enabled kind of clubs to have it free of charge during this period. So yeah, definitely something that we're really wary of, and something that we have done everything to kind of protect your membership, because that is, if you don't have members, then obviously that's our core business.
Yeah, thanks for addressing that, Glenn. Max, a question that might be relevant to you, and I might even sort of add to it. This person says, what about the training of instructors? Do you think that this will impact the amount of people who want to become a PT or a group exercise instructor, or perhaps a yoga instructor in your case? And I'd add to that too, one of the trends that I've certainly seen with social media being a prolific content avenue for instructors is that a lot of qualified instructors are also thinking, okay, how do I build out my own digital presence, my own audience, and go direct to perhaps some of those raving fans. I'd be interested to know how you're navigating that with your instructors alongside them as they, seek out opportunities to buffer their income during the pandemic, and how you see that sort of playing out going forward.
So it's always been, in a way, it's not that different. I mean, the simple answer to the original question around, is there still demand to be yoga instructors is yes, absolutely. We run a teacher training school that's managed to continue running the courses online, and then we're going to go back to offline later on this year, and we've seen demand be really, really strong, and there's clearly still a real desire to do that. Yoga's not going away. Yoga teaching's not going away. The models might change a little bit. There'll be shifts in how studios operate and things, but ultimately it's been around for a couple of thousand years, so I don't think this is going to kill it. So I think the demand in that will be retained, I'm sure. I think in terms of the relationship between us and our instructors and yoga studios generally and their instructors, again, it's not radically different necessarily from how it is offline, which is that typically we work with yoga instructors who also work, they run their own classes, they work at other studios, and we basically have always taken the view that they are the lifeblood of our business, our instructors, and they're who our customers love, and we work with them really, really closely and have a really strong relationship with them. We've personally always taken a view that they should be free to do what they want to do, and they're never going to really sort of infringe on what we do, because what we do is unique to us, and people thankfully will continue to come to our classes regardless. And I think that will always be the case. And actually, arguably, this crisis, one of the things it's done is it's brought real kind of strength in teams, and it's brought real, an opportunity for businesses to be really, really supportive. And so we at a very early stage, stuck our neck out and said to our instructors, even though you're all freelancers and legally and technically we have no responsibility to you, we're going to continue supporting you and we're going to continue paying you through this. And, you know, sadly, it was not at exactly the same level as it was before, but it was a, you know, a really significant gesture. And what that's bred is a huge amount of loyalty and a huge amount of appreciation from them. And so, you know, we will, beyond that, we will help them and actively encourage them to be sourcing income from elsewhere, building their names and building their own offerings as best as they possibly can in the directions they want to. Because that benefits us and it benefits them. And as I said, they need to be healthy and well and you know, having thriving careers, because they're the, as I said, the lifeblood of our business.
I think that's a fantastic approach. Thanks for sharing that, Max. We have a question as an extension of that for you, Glenn, from Julie, who says, I feel that yoga is different from GX as it can be done really successfully online and has been for a long time on YouTube. What about GX instructors for, e.g. Les Mills? This is all about the interaction and the crowd.
Yeah, it's definitely a different skill set. And even our program directors, and some of them have been, you know, teaching classes for 20 or more years, are learning this new, you know, this new era and to teach and deliver an effective class digitally. But I think what we have learned is it can be done. And even we've had to pivot, much like you, Max, we've had to pivot our training for our instructors to online. And we were a little bit wary of doing that, because the traditional belief is that you need that interaction and that one-on-one, and, you know, you need to build that bond live and in person. And the demand has been amazing, and we do get feedback from that as well. And the feedback has been incredible, and it's something we'll continue to do. Maybe not as the default, but definitely it's something we'll continue to do, because it does allow you to reach more people. And I think part of what we're delivering, and again, this will be something that's delivered next week as part of this new proposition that we'll have, is some ways to deliver an effective online class and how you can do that. And even things like having music delivered successfully during doing an online platform. You need to do it in a different way, and there's techniques and mechanisms you can do to make that a better experience for your members. But yeah, it can be done. And I think one thing that, again, that's positive that's come out of this crisis is it has kind of forced us to, I guess, to think outside the box and try new stuff and test and learn. And you know, we have seen it can be done.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I think, you know, when it comes to, you know, giving somebody a virtual high five as somebody is setting their question, or, you know, creating that interaction, is a real technology based opportunity. You know, it's a tech driven problem that I know a lot of companies, including Les Mills, are really stepping up to resolve. And it's about being creative. It's about finding new ways to communicate in that space. And I can certainly see a lot more instructors are building their confidence in just how to present on camera and in that space, whether they're in a 1-bedroom flat in London or in a physical production space as we go exit lockdown. A question for you both. Do you, from an anonymous attendee, do you foresee the growth in digital audiences and digital community behind your brands converting to physical sign-ups and new membership leads when Les Mills and Hot Pod yoga classes start up again? And this is a great question. What are you doing outside of live workouts to keep your community loyal to your brand during this time? Max?
In terms of it being a future sort of stream, I think it just depends. I mean, I'm not talking about for us, but I'm thinking about generally, you know, in terms of it being a source of new customers. As I said at the outset, I think it's tough to do that. And I think you've got to do that, you know, you've got to be doing the online bit as well as you're doing the offline bit. And if you're a studio, you know, physical space like us, who's been doing that for years and built up real expertise and excellence in that and has a real point of difference, that's what people are coming for. Then converting those people online is relatively straightforward, because you've built the kudos with them, you've built reputation with them. Doing it the other way around, you have to deliver the same degree of excellence online. And as I said, for me, I think that differentiation is going to be the really, really important part of that, and having something that really sets you apart. And as I said before, I think that's a challenge. So I think that's, I think it's not a straightforward one, but I think there is an opportunity there, clearly, particularly when you look at the sort of borderless element that we talked about earlier. Sorry, remember, what was the second part of your question, Lauren?
Just around building customer loyalty. So what are you doing?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like in reality, we do what we do very well, which is teach yoga classes. And we sort of said, we're not going to start creating recipe boxes, although plenty of people have done a fantastic job of that. And we're not going to start giving people life coaching classes online. What we've done is we've said we're going to create really great quality yoga classes for you. We've done some other elements as well. We've done more workshops than we'd normally do. We've done some short online teacher training to keep people engaged and keep people learning. But really, it's actually just been about trying to create the closest as possible to our online offering, to our customers that know and love us and rely on us. And also for us, doing it in a way that was absolutely 100% affordable, because it was donation based. And so if people wanted to come and do it for free, they could. And we took that that stance early on to say, for us, the most important thing is keeping engagement and being able to provide a service to people who really do need us. And that was something that was highlighted really, really early on, that this is not a luxury for people. This isn't a sort of, a nice to have. This is a must have for a lot of people, and they really rely on us. And so we sort of said, we have to step up and deliver this. And we're happy to do that for free if it means we're attracting, and keeping large audiences of people happy. And so we did that. And we've done other things as well. We did a great NHS fundraiser, which raised £125,000 in about 6 days. We put it together, and we've done elements like that have kept people engaged with us, and that was slightly out of the ordinary, but generally it's been focusing on what we do best.
I think that's a really great point that you've made there, Max, that, well-being and fitness for so many people is no longer a loyalty. It's the exciting thing about the future of the industry, is where once we considered it to be a luxury, for so many people, it's built into their lives. It gets them through stressful jobs. It, is their time out from looking after kids, or, being a stay-at-home parent, whatever that is. So it's a really important point that you flagged, and a reason that we should, be looking forward to the future, where more and more people see that value as building it in, building well-being and, fitness, yoga, whatever it is, into their lifestyle, as a permanent structure of that. Glenn, can you speak to the customer loyalty point?
Yeah, I think just to echo what Max said, we know that, we can only go by what we've seen in other markets, but people are craving that human interaction. We're social beings, and they do want to get back to the facility. So the point around people who are doing a digital experience converting to a live experience, we have definitely seen that is the case in other markets. And around I guess the loyalty piece, much like, I think and you alluded to this earlier, Lauren, the way the industry is pulled together. So our biggest competitor is Zumba. We actually went into partnership with Zumba in the US to petition the American government to pay freelance instructors, because they weren't part of the original funding that the government was providing for the payment protection plan in the US. So the industry's really come together to support each other, and we've taken a number of initiatives. We do free webinars and free insight seminars, and as I said, provided lessons on demand free for 60 days for clubs and their members, so they can train while this is going on. But it's just been amazing to see how everyone's pulled together and supported each other through this. It's been really, really amazing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really positive note to end on. With 2 minutes to spare, I've got a couple of announcements for you all in terms of upcoming opportunities to engage in this conversation and to navigate the trends that we're facing. So very quickly, Welltodo's next Digital Trends Forum, where we'll dive a little bit deeper into some of the trends that we're seeing and researching right now, will be on the 9th of June at 7 p.m. British Standard Time. So we'll pop a link into the chat right now to join that event. And then finally, from Dubai Active, their event is obviously coming up in Dubai, as I mentioned at the beginning, from the 12th to the 14th of November. So details of that are also on your screen right now, and we'll share that in the chat as well. Huge thanks, Glenn, for joining us from Dubai and sharing your insights today. And Max, to you as well, thank you for joining us from London, and wishing you both so much success as you continue to navigate this space. And of course, to everybody who's joined us on the webinar today, thank you for taking the time. We've actually come in with 1 minute to spare, so I'll let you share some of your takeaways as you're leaving in the chat. And again, thank you so much to everyone for joining us, to Dubai Active, and obviously from our team at Welltodo. We wish you all a great day or a great evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.